Good evening and welcome to the June 8th, 2021 Planning Commissioners meeting. If we have roll call, Shannon?
Messina.
Here.
Fleming.
Here.
Ingalls.
Here.
Lutrip.
Here.
Mandel.
Here.
Rumpler.
Here.
Ward.
Okay, if you can join me in the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Excuse me, we have approval of the minutes for the April 13th, 2021 meeting.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion. and a
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, thank you. At this time, we'll have public comments from anyone that's sitting in the audience, other than what's on the agenda for this evening. If anyone wishes to speak, come on up. Staff comments? John?
Yeah, so in July, we did receive one item. It's a zone change, so there will be a public hearing for Planning Commission in July. I also wanted to let everyone know that the Atlas Mill Park is open. Hillary said that she had brought her dog down there, and her dog had a fabulous time. And I know a number of people in the community have been looking forward to a waterfront dog park that is sanctioned for dogs. So it's out there, and hope everybody gets out there and uses it.
Okay, yeah, I've gone down to the park and used the dog park, and it's pretty amazing. And yeah, I encourage anyone to go on down there. It's summertime. It's quite a park that the city has accomplished. Commissioner comments at this time? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just like to comment, it's fun to be back together as a cohesive group. It seems more natural. Item of interest, though, is the public still limited to the number of people that can sit here, or is it unlimited seating?
I believe we still practice social distancing, but there's no mask mandate. We encourage them, if people would like to wear a mask, they can wear a mask.
So sometimes, in the past, people have come here and said, well, we couldn't come because the seating was limited. That's not going to be a problem in the future?
I believe as long as it's recognized that the governor's orders are what they are, that's what we will be following.
Well, the reason I say, we're sitting pretty close together, and if we say the public can only come in a limited group, makes me feel,
We will get seats out for people.
thank you.
Okay, any other comments? No? Sean, are we going to do an vision update?
Yeah, I can provide a quick one here. So each of you should have received a draft copy of the plan, which also included the policy and action items. That was due to a public records request. We wanted to make sure that everybody saw it at the same time, so we released it in that fashion. So the last public survey is being crafted per the direction of City Council, which seeks additional feedback prior to bringing forward the results to a joint Planning Commission and City Council workshop in the future. And at the same time, Coeur d'Alene 2030 is working to coordinate, lead, and supporting partners for the action items. City staff is also bringing forward those action items to department heads in our executive team to review and assign city-led action items. Following all of that, staff will bring forward a final draft for Planning Commission and City Council for consideration to adopt.
All right, thanks, Sean, appreciate it. At this time, we're going to go into our public hearing, and City of Coeur d'Alene Water Department is proposed essential services above-ground special use permit in an R8 zoning district, SP-4-21.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
So tonight before us, we have a request from the Water Department for essential service above ground special use permit in an R8 zoning district. We're having a little bit of a problem. Let's see. We're having a little bit of a problem with our F drive where our PowerPoints are. So we pulled up. Chaz looks like he was running the show. There we go. If we can share that as the screen, that would be a big help. So we're going to shoot from the hip here a little bit and work directly from our staff report that's online and share that out to Zoom, and hopefully it'll be up here on the screen for everybody. So it's, let me get there real quick. There's all the minutes that were just approved. All right, so we will start here. So as mentioned, the applicant is the City of Coeur d'Alene. It's the Water Department. Some background information here is the Water Department staff has been working diligently to keep on schedule with the planned well construction to keep up with the increasing demand of water in the city. Currently, the demand has been approximately 38 million gallons per day to 40 million gallons per day for the last 3 years, with a maximum capacity of 44 million gallons per day. And so it's time for us to increase our ability to produce water. And this is the location that has been identified to do that for the city. So here is a property location map. You can see it's up here in the corner. This is Hutter here, and this is the Prairie Trail. City limits is denoted in green. This is zoomed in a little bit more so you can see this is the area under consideration. Also, as a part of this, they have joined with our Parks Department. They have identified a location there where they can put in a trailhead. And so there's going to be some parking that's also in your staff report as well. So people will be able to drive there and access the very edge of North Prairie Trail as it is in city limits. Here's the layout of this request. So you can see where it is in the red with the yellow outline. That will be the Hutter well, as well as the pump and the associated backup generators and things that are needed to produce water, with an 18-inch water main coming off of that. And then here, this red box right here will be the location of where that trailhead will be located. Here's what it looks like in a drawing. So as for the elevation of the buildings themselves, it's approximately 18 feet in height. You can take a peek, that's what it will look like. Will be screened and have a fence around it, just like our other well sites in the city. So here's the south elevation, the north elevation is typical. It's either block or brick construction. So the zoning in the area, it's zoned R8. You can see out in this area, almost everything is zoned R8. There's a little R3 here and here, and some R17 up here where there's apartments, as well as the park. There's a description of R8, and essential service above ground is allowed by special use permit if approved. So wanted to point out before I move into the findings, the first findings is the comprehensive plan map. And so there was a little bit of a snafu with this inside of the actual staff report. It was shown as Ramsey Woodland. Actually, the property is right up here, and it's right underneath this legend. I had it in my PowerPoint that I could show the difference, but I just wanted to let you know that it's not in Ramsey Woodland, it's in Atlas Prairie, and it is in a transition area and not in a stable established area. And so I just wanted to let Planning Commission, as well as people at home that are listening and are here in the audience, that the site was still posted in the proper location. Legal notice was published in the paper, and notices were sent to property owners within 300 feet. So it still did meet the minimum requirements. I just wanted to let you know. So the Ramsey Woodland tomorrow here, like I said, is not accurate. The comprehensive plan goals and objectives are inside of the Atlas Prairie tomorrow language. There is language that says that utilities are not available and will need to be looked at to expand growth in the area, which is what this request refers to. So there are several goals and objectives here that have been pulled out of the comprehensive plan that are in relation to this request. Objective 1.11, 12, 14, 16, objective 3.12, objective 4.01, 4.02, and 4.06. Those are in your staff report. So this finding, which is B8A, Planning Commission must determine based on the information before them whether the comprehensive plan policies do or do not support the request, and specific ways in which the policy is or is not supported by this request should be stated in your findings. The second finding is B8B, the design and planning of the site is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. Let's see here. So Tammy has provided what the minimum yard requirements are for development. This is improvement to the area to provide utilities. You can see just north of the Prairie Trail right here, and there's some pictures that are coming up. This is an electrical substation, so it is kind of an area that deals with utilities right here on either side of the trail. The land use, as you can see here, this kind of lighter tan area is currently vacant. The yellow area are single-family homes, and then the park right up here is a civic use. All right, here's those photos I was just mentioning. This is from Prairie Trail Hutter looking southeast at the subject property, looking southwest towards the subject property, looking east at the subject property from Hutter, and looking west at the subject property from, or toward Hutter Road. Let's see. Then across the way, the landings development, and that electrical substation that I had mentioned just a moment ago. Then Hutter as it's traveling north-south. So finding B8C, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. So all of our departments that have any say in what is being reviewed here, so stormwater, streets, and traffic have all identified that there will be occasional visits. The streets can handle the traffic, and stormwater will be handled on site. Water department has no issues with this because they will be getting water from this site, and wastewater has no issues as well. Fire department says that they will take a look at it at the time of building permit and review it at that point. So Planning Commission must determine if the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. There are no proposed conditions, and as such, these standards were used in the evaluation in the staff report, and Planning Commission must consider this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice, and your findings worksheet is attached. So I will stand for questions if there are any questions.
Questions for Sean? No? Okay, thanks, Sean, appreciate it. Terry, do you want to add anything to what Sean said, or we're good to go?
Thank you, Commissioners, for considering the special use permit tonight. I just wanted to let you know that this is consistent with our comp plan, and we'll be updating that in the near future.
Excuse me, Terry, just state your name and,
Sorry.
yeah.
Terry Pickle, Water Department Director for the City of Coeur
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to let you know is that per the comp plan, we're trying to stay ahead of population growth. We've been bumping up against maximum day capacities here for the last couple of years, and this May, we've been pumping double what we did last year at the same time. We've had all 10 wells running in the month of May, which we typically don't see till mid to late July. So unfortunately, the well won't be done until this fall, but we definitely need it. We've seen residential consumption double in the last 5 years, and our overall irrigation consumption has increased by 1/3. So we've got to get ahead of some of this growth, And this will help feed the new section of the Armstrong property that will be developed in the next few years.
Terry, on the increase for irrigation, is that residential and city parks?
That would be commercial, city parks, and school district. The residential don't have separate meters, so the residential use is a lot of the irrigation. They're the biggest user overall.
see.
So,
And as we grow as a city with more parks, which people want,
yes.
the consumption does increase.
Yep. And that's something I'd like to address with the commissioners sometime, if we could do a workshop, is to talk about green space requirements for future development. We're having issues with that. That's a lot of the irrigation demand that you're seeing, and we'd like to discuss some alternatives to lower water use landscaping. Everybody loves their grass. Grass is the least expensive to install, easiest to maintain, but it requires the most amount of water. So we need to take a look at some of our standards and see if we can figure out some way to get ahead of some of this irrigation growth. So,
Sure, anytime, just check with staff, and I'm sure we're willing to
Okay.
do whatever we need to do. And with all the studies and reports we're doing for increased population in the next 10 years, 20 years, how are we looking, or is that one of the reasons for perhaps having a workshop for?
that's one of the goals. Yes, is to look at that growth. What's going to happen with density? Our current comp plan shows that we will need one more well to reach build out, but that was prior to density increases. So I'm thinking that's probably going to go out the window with our next comp plan study, which we're planning to start this coming year.
All right, and Sean, how is this all working with our comp plan updates and stuff? We're kind of looking into that right now, or?
Yeah, and so there is language, and you can check what was sent out on Friday. There's language in the growth and development area, I believe is where it's at, that talks about alternatives to grass and things of that nature to keep the consumption lower and to look at that. And so, as Terry just mentioned, he would like to meet with Planning Commission and City Council, and so we can start working on those action items right away.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, any questions to Terry? Yeah.
But our issue is not availability of water, is it? I mean, we all we're drawing from the same pool. It's the need to increase the access to wells, and that's the cost.
Correct. At this
And-
point, when we reach, expected build out at 75 to 85,000 people, and the rest of the area over the aquifer does the same thing, that may become an issue in the future. Right now, we've got over 600,000 people drawing off this aquifer, and it's maintaining at this point, but really nobody knows exactly where that break-even point is.
I would encourage us, when we do the study, is do it in a collective fashion,
Yep.
because we're all sitting there. And the other issue is, if we have a meeting, I would like to come to understand a little bit about how how the water department sets their boundaries, their districts. We had an item before us the other day where the water is being provided by someone else in an annexation. And that sort of surprised me. It surprised me because I never gave it a thought. And I see that where this is here is that's where a lot of our growth is going. So is the area around here, is that water provided by the city of Coeur d'Alene or by somebody else?
The water on the east side of Hutter will be provided by the city of Coeur d'Alene up to Prairie Avenue. On the west side, depending on how the Hutter bypass ends up going in, is a little bit questionable. Most of it will probably go to Ross Point or Post Falls, but a portion of it, depending on how that Hutter bypass and being below grade, might be transferred to the city. But we have to go through a process with IDWR, or Idaho Department of Water Resources, Department of Environmental Quality, and the Public Utility Commission to redraw those boundaries.
So they have a say in this.
Yeah.
Because it seems to me the more customers we have, the more we can spread the cost over a wider base.
Right.
So, yeah. Thank you very much.
And just to add too, and not the problem in Coeur d'Alene, but our development isn't so much single families as much anymore. It's more multifamilies and higher buildings.
Yeah,
I
we've seen
think.
an increase on multifamily use over the past 5 years as well.
Yeah.
Commercial stayed, I mean, a little bit of growth there, but mostly multifamily. Residential is exploding. We went from 1.3 billion in gallons per year in 2016 to 2.2 billion gallons in 2020.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Terry? No, thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. Okay. I have no one signed up for to talk on this as far as public comment on this, so I'm going to close public comment and bring it to the commissioners for a motion and discussion. Go ahead, John.
Last meeting, I didn't get to do any findings.
We
so,
did a fine job on the last meeting in
the-
my absence. Thank you very much.
The other great commissioners carried the day and did a great job, but I'll make a motion in the format of working through the finding worksheet, for approval of this as a matter that's come before the Planning Commission, SP 4-21 on June 8, 2021, and there being present a person requesting approval of item SP 4-21, an essential service above ground special use permit in the R8 zoning district, the applicant being the City of Coeur d'Alene Water Department, location the east side of Hutter Road, south of the Landings Development, and west of the Trails Development, 0.253 acres located at 7032 North Hutter Road. Our motion that we include the findings B1 through B7 statements of fact in our worksheet with a correction for B3. It would be in the Atlas
Prairie.
Prairie rather than the Ramsey Woodland. With that correction, we'd adopt B1 through B7. With respect to B8A, finding that the proposal is in conformance with the comp plan. As Sean pointed out, I think this sinks in well with all of those objectives that were mentioned in his report, with particular strength of Objective 4.02, city services, to provide quality services to all of our residents, including potable water, good water, tasty water, and whatnot. B8B, as an essential service, this is, I believe, very well justified. That's a joke. The design and planning of the site is compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties, and that's based on the testimony and the exhibits that were provided that show that the architectural design is such that it would be a good fit with the surrounding single-family homes and in sync with the surrounding neighborhood in terms of architectural style, et cetera, building height, and so forth. B8C, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services, and this is based on all of the pertinent city departments indicating no issues, as stated on pages 14 and 15 of the staff report. So with that, as a conclusion and decision, the Planning Commission pursuant to the aforementioned would find that the special use permit as described in the application should be approved with no conditions.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Ingles. Need a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Rumpler. Roll call, Shannon, please.
Fleming?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
Lutrip?
Yes.
Mandel?
Yes.
Rumpler?
Yes.
Okay, SP-4-21 is approved. Moving right along, our next public hearing, there's 3 items that will be discussed here. It's a A-2-21, a zone prior to annexation, PUD-2-21, a residential plan unit development, and S-2-21, a 5-lot, 2-tract preliminary plat request for Hay Estates. And Mike, go right ahead.
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
You're welcome.
Yes, as you recall, this
meeting was originally held on March 9th in front of the Planning Commission, and staff presented all three items. And after that, it was tabled so that the applicant can give staff more additional information, and more specifically titled, or in response to PUD item B8C and B8E. So we'll kind of give you guys an overview of where we are with where this property is located, and then dive into those two items that were kind of addressed at that time. So the property is located here in Stanley Hill area. See, it's highlighted here in red. Here's a close-up aerial photograph of the subject site. Stanley Hill Road stubs in to the east and to the west. Here's another aerial photo. Here's the annexation map that we went over, just kind of overview. The existing zonings, county, ag, suburban, and the adjacent R3, and the proposal is R3. Here's the topographic map indicating the topography and some site photos. This is the existing single-family dwelling located on the northern part of the property. Here's a site photo on Stanley Hill Road looking west into the property. Here's one on the center of the property looking southwest. Here's on the other side of Stanley Hill Road looking east into the property. And this is on the center of the property looking north. So the findings for the planned unit development, the two in question at that time was B8C. So I'll scroll down to that one. So the proposal is or is not compatible with the natural features of the site and adjoining properties. The subject is located on a hillside and has slopes greater than 20%. The hillside overlay requires that the development must retain a calculated portion of a natural state, and below is the code section of the hillside requiring retention in the natural state. All development shall retain an area equal to 25% of the total parcel plus the percentage figure of the average slope of the total parcel in its natural state. So for example, on a 25,000 square foot lot, an average slope above 29% plus the 25 is equal 54% of the total area of the lot must be retained in the natural state. And prior to that, before the hearing last time, the applicant did not have any exhibits, and he has since presented those to staff, indicating how that disturbed area will be and how it can meet that 54%. So lot 2, lot 3, and he has lot 4 and lot 5. The applicant also presented more architectural renderings and styles that they foresee that may be built on these properties, and that wasn't included in the last presentation as well. And that's on page 32 of your staff report, but here's some of the architectural renderings that he has presented that has a variety of housing types, because they're selling the lots, and each owner will pick what their house type would be. So they're from modern, Cape Cod, all types of different house styles. And then finally, the other finding was finding B8E. It was in regards to the open space. So the previous plan did not have any connectivity to the other southern two lots, and the proposed plan has the connectivity, and it shows it right here. It comes down. There's going to be a 5-foot trail that heads up here with an overlook and a bench. The applicant has some exhibits as well that they're going to present today. So there was also the subdivision findings that we went over. So there's 19 conditions that are attached to the staff report. So the Planning Commission will need to consider this request for the zoning prior to annexation, the PUD and subdivision, and make separate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice, and the findings worksheets are attached.
Okay. And we have to make 3 findings for 3
That's-
separate items this evening.
That's correct.
Okay. And the renderings of the style of houses, depending on how this goes, if it's approved, we're not tying into the designs. We're tying into a PUD and annexation and,
That's correct.
okay. Are you gonna do each one, or,
I wasn't, because I already presented it the first time, and this is a tabled hearing.
okay,
So I'm just going to address the two issues that came up during that time.
okay.
Unless you wanted me to bring something up that I can.
Did any of the commissioners wish Mike to elaborate on what he said based on if we were here or not here the last time, or part of the Zoom meeting the last time?
I think everyone was here except for Mike Ward.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Well, I have some questions, but I'm
This
not
meeting is being
necessarily in favor
recorded.
of going through the whole thing again, but I have questions.
Okay,
Sure.
that's fine.
That's fine.
Me too.
We're good? Okay, Mike. We'll let you off the hook.
Okay.
All right.
I
ahead, Peter.
have some questions of Mike.
Of him?
Of
or
Mike?
you?
Oh, yeah, that's,
Oh, oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
so do I.
All right,
So
you're
you
back.
start.
okay,
Start and we'll
Do you want
move
me to pull up
this
the aerial photograph, or?
I have a number. If you, Mike, would you mind going back to the aerial, I think you called it the aerial photo map thing?
It shows the lots?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, this shows,
That, no, the other way.
the one that shows lots?
Well,
It shows the lots.
With the topo,
Yeah.
more of the
Topo.
topo map?
past it, I
The
think.
topo's probably
That one.
that one.
That'll work. And I don't know if you can expand that, blow it up a little bit? Or-
Yeah, plus it up a bit. There you go.
Okay. I don't know if this got addressed last time, but, and you may have referred to Lily Road, Lily Drive as Stanley Hill,
Okay,
maybe.
yeah, my
But
mistake, that-
at any rate, we're seeing to the east of it, that's Lily. Thank you for pointing that. That's Lily.
Yep.
And if you put your cursor right at the westerlymost point, right there, you'll see that there's at least 10, if not 20 feet between the edge of the end of Lily and the property. So I want to know if the city has reached out, or maybe the applicant needs to address this to East Side Highway. You know, who's going to extend that road 20 feet with improvements and so forth, number one. And number two, are they okay with, you know, some configuration of driveways just coming off that dead end, or would they want to see it cul-de-saced, or are they okay? Do we have to get their approval in advance, and has that all been worked out? That's
Yeah, the
question
city
number one. I
engineer
have a
has
couple of-
reviewed this and has worked it out, and just to bring the point up, this is not survey grade, so the property, I'm not for sure where the exact line is. So it may be touching the property, it may not, but that is a good point, that I'd have to check with the city engineer on that.
So that's kind of an issue, and
I'm gonna pull up a better aerial, because the lines are kind of busy there, so let's see if I can pull up
and kind of related to that, and I didn't really think about that the first meeting. Thank you. But both the what would be Lot 1, the existing house, if annexed, would be served by a county road. I mean, the Stanley Hill serving that house is a county road. Lily Drive is a county road, so you would have access to city of Coeur d'Alene houses off a county road. I don't, that can be quirky, but at any rate, I wanted to kind of touch on that. Another question for you, in your staff report on page 2, you highlight what the Planning Commission and the City Council said about this site back in 2006. And the question I have, after I read from your report, it says, quote, that the physical characteristics of the site do not make it suitable for the request at this time because of the steep topography, stormwater, drainage, and existing spring on the property make the subject property unsuitable for R3 zoning. So that was what both the Planning Commission and the City Council said in 2005. And so, and some of the comments that we've gotten people have talked about, water, groundwater, spring water and whatnot. Can you expand and bring any validity to that issue?
I've heard the concerns, that there is concerns from the neighbors about this spring and this water area, and the engineer for this project has indicated through their plans that you guys can review that they're going to address that through stormwater, and he's going to make a presentation on that today, how that spring is going to be addressed, and I don't know if that'll facilitate your concerns or not, but that is still a concern.
Okay, last question for me, we'll let the others, is you showed what looked like a catalog of every architectural style I've seen ever. I mean, that looks like, well, it could be a house from A to Z. So is one of those chosen, or?
No,
I think that's their way of saying
anything.
they don't know what it's going to be because they're going to sell the lots.
Yeah, it's
And they're
anything.
trying to cover.
They
a
have no
wide-
control over that.
Wide net.
And that's why we're not tying in those architectural pictures to anything we approve.
Well, they left
It-
out Dutch colonial. Come
Yeah.
on. Yeah, no.
But we're looking at zone changes, annexation, and a
It's irrelevant.
PUD, not style of homes.
No.
They can show what they like, but that's really not a decision
It's
we're
not
making
relevant.
tonight. Yeah.
I'll pass for now. Thanks.
Okay, next.
I have the same question that John had, I guess, and you mentioned the three items that, why it was denied last time. What has changed from 2005 to now?
Just the applicant bringing forward it again. I mean, other than the conditions, the comp plan has changed. Before there was 05, there wasn't. We have a 07 comp plan, so the comp plan did change between then and now. And I'm not for sure what the comp plan, the 05 comp plan was.
So, we promote orderly development. We still have that, do we not, in our comp plan? Examine all new development for appropriateness in regard to the character of the proposed area. We still have that. The physical characteristics of the site do not make it suitable for request. The physical characteristics have not changed. Has our comp plan changed in this area?
The previous one you're talking was 05. The new comp plan is 2007, so there was a prior comp plan.
What I'm getting to is, through a process, this was denied.
That is correct.
And then things have changed either in our criteria or the physical characteristics of the property to warrant us to reconsider this? That's the basis of my question.
None that I'm aware of.
And the third answer is it will adversely affect the surrounding area. Okay, next item is, thank you very much for that one, is on the maximal allowable distribution of the area, that the little graph you had. Gordon's a good engineer, but I'm not an engineer.
Right.
This is what the proposer views possible. But if this is approved, then the building permit or something has to be done by a professional engineer certifying that these footages are met.
That is correct.
And if they are not met, then the thing withers.
That is correct.
The PUD may pass, but if this can't be done, then the PUD goes away?
If they can't get it done, then if they can't show through their development plans that it's even possible, then it can't be built.
Okay, so, but it's an independent engineer, an engineer renders their opinion and provides it to the city for the city to opine on.
That's correct.
Very good, thank you.
Commissioner Mendel?
It was just maybe a follow-on to Commissioner Lutrip. So since the 2005 Planning and Council finding, we now have more quantitative criteria for hillside overlay, right?
Yes.
So that, I think, is what has
Yeah.
changed, is now we have a way to evaluate if it's at least the topography. And so I think that's what we asked of the applicant last time, is to meet that criteria. So I think that's one significant change or update since
Yep.
the 2005 review.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions of Mike right now? No? Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Gordon? Gordon, just give us your name and the city you live in, and I'll swear you in.
Gordon Dobler, City of Coeur d'Alene.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go right ahead, Gordon.
Okay, I'm gonna, come on. There we go.
Oh, and before I continue, I forgot to ask the commissioners if we have any conflict of interest on this. No? Okay. And everyone can hear us out there? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, can we raise the level to the, how are we doing now? A little better? Oh, you're welcome. Sorry about that. Should have asked that before. Go ahead, sorry.
So I want to start by jumping back a little bit. I'm a little bit concerned with, we're starting to compare it to an '05 that was denied for various reasons. I was a city engineer at that time, and I can tell you that this proposal is in no way resembles in any way, shape, or form that proposal. It is totally different. So this will stand on its own merits, and as it should. And I'll point out some of the, what I remember, what the issues were. So here we go. This is Hague Estates. You know where we're at. We're coming in with the proposed R3. I'm going to give you some numbers. So it matches the surrounding zoning, which is R3, at least in the city. The overall density that we're proposing is 1.5 dwelling units per acre. I'm giving you some of the densities of the abutting subdivision so you can see and determine in your mind the appropriateness of the R3. So Ponderosa Terrace, which is this subdivision right here, in a larger view, it's this one here on Lily, that has a density of 2.9 dwelling units per acre, twice the density that we're proposing. Ponderosa Park, which is right to the north of it, that has a density of 3.29 dwelling units per acre, more than twice what we're proposing. Stanley Hill Terrace, which is up in this area, this subdivision right here, 2.42 dwelling units per acre. Again, 50% more than what we're proposing. So the density that we're proposing is obviously way less than what it abuts, even though we're still in the R3 zone because of the large lot to the north and other factors. Our lot sizes are well above the minimum in an R3 zone. So that speaks to the density that we're proposing and that appropriateness. Here's the proposed plat. I'll look up here, it's a little easier. I want to review some of what we originally proposed. I didn't even get a chance to make a presentation last time, rightfully so. One of the comments from staff at the last meeting was the open space tract needs to be accessible to all the lots. So we've revised the plat, and you'll see it clearer on the PUD. Well, actually, I'll just flip to it. So this is the PUD. This open space tract now extends down the east side of the property, comes into this common driveway area, which is accessible by all three of these lots, and then there's a pedestrian access easement so that Lot 4 can get to the common driveway and come up through into the open space. I will show you a little bit later on in my presentation that revised open space plan that has the elements that PUDs were looking for. We really didn't get that far last time, but that also was amended too. So that's additional information for this hearing. So we've basically got our four lots. This is the larger one. I'll go back up to the preliminary plat now. So here's the existing house. You can see this is left as a larger lot. This open space tract will be natural, but you'll see here in a minute the open space plan that creates a passive use accessible to all the lots. The difference in this plat, the last one that came through had a street that connected through. And that brings a lot of issues with it. This one does not have that at all. And there were more lots proposed than there were on this one. So we actually have two access point, three if you want to count Stanley Hill, which you should, because Lot 1 will continue to access Stanley Hill as it does right now. Lot 4 will access off of the West Lily West, and these three will access through a common driveway from Lily East. The common driveway is configured so that it's 23 feet, 24 foot. It will accommodate a 24-foot common driveway in the middle of it. The tract itself is 30 feet wide. Where we have the three driveways will intersect. Once we get past the Lot 2 and Lot 3 driveway, then it narrows down to a 15-foot, which will accommodate the single driveway to Lot 4. Let me segue a minute to Mr. Ingles' comments about East Side. Yes, East Side was made aware of this. They had no comments. I talked to Ben about it. He wasn't too concerned. It's an existing condition, and the addition of the three homes off of a common driveway, they had no objection to that. I think you're right in that the pavement doesn't go to the property line, and there'll be about a 10 or 20-foot piece that we will have to pave that the driveway will extend to. And East Side understood that, but, quite frankly, that was probably 5-6 months ago when we talked about it, but they had no objection to it at the time, and I'm not foreseeing any issues there. Utilities to the lots will be thusly. Sewer and water are in West Lily, so we'll extend the sewer main along the southerly boundary here in a sewer easement and then up to East Lily. Really, we're just following the letter of the law because I don't think staff foresees providing sewer further east than it is now. But the policy is to bring it through the property. Nobody's going to guarantee what's going to happen in the future, so we're making that provision. Water already exists in both sides. We will extend it from Lily West through, actually, water won't be extended through the project. The water department did not require that it be looped. So we'll have 3 water services for these lots coming off of the existing water main in East Lily, and then we'll have a water service coming off of the existing water main in West Lily that'll serve this lot. So again, the water department did not require a looping. It makes this easement a little bit smaller, but services from the existing mains in the budding Lily. This house will continue with its current water service. Also, sewer, the main comes here. Service will just be stubbed to these 2 lots. The service to Lot 5 will come up the west side in a 10-foot easement. It's just a sewer lateral, and because of the topography, it would be at a minimum depth to minimize the disturbance here. And this house is required to be hooked up. We're fine with that. It will also have sewer lateral coming up that underneath that same common open space tract along this 10 feet. Extend the sewer lateral up, and this house will be connected to that. So that's sewer and water. Hold on. And I think staff's touched on really the need for the PUD is because these lots don't have the minimum frontage required on a public street for an R3. Again, I would touch on the last proposal had a through street. Eliminating that substantially reduces the impact in many ways, and I'll get into that here in the next couple hours. Yay, they're listening to me. Okay, here's the PUD plan. Again, this has changed in that the open space tract now extends along this 10-foot flag, if you will, to come down to the common driveway tract and pedestrian easement to Lot 4 that will allow them to access it. 24-foot driveway conforms to fire department standards. This open space tract meets the 10%. It's about a third of an acre. And again, it's accessible to all. Here's the open space tract, and I apologize. I think I misstepped in that I may not have given it to staff in time. Well, actually, it was prepared in time. It just wasn't in the transmittal of all these other documents. So this is the plan. We'll have a 5-foot gravel path that'll come up through this easement, and it'll come out into this area here, and then there'll be a rest station with the bench. So it'll be a passive use. We don't plan to, other than grading the path into this area, to really just do any other land disturbing activities, if you want to call a path even land disturbing. You can see that's, again, it's accessible to all 3 of these lots abut it, and the 2 down here will access along this flag here to the the larger common space lot. So let's talk about the impact and really some of the things that need to be looked at for the findings. So views and vistas. Minimal land disturbance is needed to construct the common driveway and the public utilities. Major difference in this proposal in the preservation of the views and vistas without a public street. And come back up here and just see that, you know, in either one of these views, this is really, this driveway right here for the single family, for this one won't be 24, it'll be, I think 12 is the minimum required fire code, and this will be 24, so you can visualize that this is really all the disturbing area for the driveway, and then the sewer coming up and down along the southerly and easterly sides. And the sewer is not deep along here. So the land disturbing is minimal with the sewer. Hillside and urban forest preservation. So let's talk a little bit about the hillside ordinance. Part of what you saw in your staff report was the land disturbing exhibits that I produced. Let me pull it up. You've got a couple of things going here. First of all, the hillside, as Mike said, in this particular property, the slopes are 20 to 25%. So we use the 25%, use the formula in the hillside, and basically 50% of the lots for the residences have to be preserved in open space, undisturbed. So half of those lots are undisturbed. The exhibits that you have in your staff report are one of many possible configurations that would disturb less than 50% of the lot. The intent of this is to show that, yes, this can be done. I even put dimensions on them so that you wouldn't just be looking at a blob. I've got them right here. So if you look at Lot 2, the first one, we're almost 80 feet square to put a house in, and then a little flag to put a driveway in. So clearly, there's plenty of room to put a house, and not just the house, but you have to remember there's going to be some grading that's associated with putting the foundations in and some land disturbing activity. So it's going to be a little bit more than the footprint, the building footprint. But building footprints, you know, are typically, well, these will be 2-story, more than likely. So you're talking 1,500 square feet, 2,000 square feet at the most. And we've got well in excess of that. So there's no problem doing it. I mean, pull up the next one. This one for Lot 3, if you would follow me in your staff report, I've actually included the sewer easement, assuming that most of that 20-foot easement will be disturbed when we put the sewer in. And Lot 3 is probably the most impacted. But even with that, there's still a 45 by 70 foot area to put a house footprint and whatever disturbing activities would happen to dig the foundations. More than enough. I want to be emphatic about this because I want to leave you with the clear understanding that nothing's going to disappear. This can be done and it will be done. We're not doing anything, with a roll of the dice here. We know that we can build homes, decent footprints, their driveways, and the associated grading, and still stay well within the 50% preservation required by the hillside ordinance. Just touch on a couple of more. The Lot 4 you see in your staff report. Again, I've included the land disturbing activities in for putting the utilities in, and we still have a 50 by 80 area to put a house, and again, whatever disturbing activities would take place to land the footings. Lot 5, same story. We're 85 by 85 for the house and the driveway. So clearly, the benefit of this evaluation is to show that it's not going to be an issue having enough undisturbed area to be able to retain that 50% to build the houses on the lots. I agree. It would be silly to go through this exercise if we didn't know without a doubt that it could be done and have something happen later on. I hope that I've dispelled that. Okay. Open space, we provided the 10% open space. It'll remain natural, passive use passed, and area with a bench. One major difference of this proposal is that it is a PUD. That hasn't been proposed before, but it comes with the reduction of the street and the use of the common driveway to be as efficient as we can be. So with the PUD, now you're getting 10% open space that's available to these residences. I mean, you guys see subdivisions all the time. I've seen them too. How many of them are PUDs? So this is a specific benefit of the plan we're proposing, that it comes with open space. Efficient use of the infrastructure. We're not extending the street. You've seen, minimal land disturbing impact of extending the utilities, and minimal for the common driveway and the driveway to lot 5. Sorry, I'm flipping around here, but I want you to get the visual that goes with it. So we feel like this is a super efficient use of the existing infrastructure to minimize the impact, retain the natural open space, preserve the views and vistas, capture all of that. I've talked about the density that we're proposing at 1.5 dwelling units per acre, that it's, you got the numbers. There you go. It's less than half of the surrounding subdivisions. So when you're considering the compatibility of the R3 that we're proposing with the surrounding subdivisions and the neighborhood, please remember these numbers. Public facilities, water and sewer, there's capacity for them. It's 4 homes. It doesn't tax the water or the sewer facilities. Fire access is from Lilly, but actually it's even better. So fire access will be from both sides of Lilly, and you probably have more with this subdivision than you get with most, because you've got 1, 2, 3 points of fire access. The common driveway will be constructed to fire department standards. It won't be longer than 150 feet, so no turnaround is required, and it will be less than 8%. It won't even be close to that, so the grades aren't going to be a problem. Physical characteristics. I can't speak to why past bodies have said they're not adequate, but I will. Here's what I want to point out. The physical characteristics they don't pose any substantial issues. Here's what I want to show you from this drawing. When you look at the topo lines, the topography lines, that's what these white ones are. The closer they are together, the steeper it is. When you look at these existing subdivisions, this was built on steeper slopes than we're proposing. This one somewhat shallower, but not substantially. This isn't a grass prairie. So this hillside, over the years, has been developed at densities higher than what we're proposing, on slopes, in some cases, steeper than what we're using. I've walked the site. There's really no issue with the steepness of the terrain in constructing single-family homes. Again, when you put them on this kind of a grade, they'll be probably daylight basement that takes advantage of the topography. You don't need to do massive grading to put the houses in. And the common driveway itself is narrower enough, and it goes across the slope where we won't be doing significant grading to construct that.
Gordon, can I ask you on the topo, what's the difference between from where the open space is down to the southern part of the property? From that-
Elevation-wise?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, to give you a rough
What are your
idea.
topo lines? What
What's
are they?
the-
What's the topo
what-
line? 5-foot
Well,
drop?
okay, so we're looking at, this is
5 foot? What are increments?
probably 30, maybe 40 feet in elevation difference.
Because what are your topo lines?
I'm sorry.
Are they 5-foot drop? Or are they 2-foot drop? Because we're dropping by 13 topo lines from the open green space down to the bottom. I counted them. So what are those topo lines indicating? Is that a
Let
2-foot
me
drop
go to
or a
one that I
5-foot
know.
drop?
Here you go.
Yeah, there are 13 drops down to the bottom from the green space track to the bottom.
Hold on.
So I just can't read those topo line elevations.
You know what, if you don't mind, give me
30 feet or 65
2 seconds.
feet?
so
On the
can
map I
answer.
provided, there are 5-foot
10 feet.
contours.
Are they 10
think
foot?
Oh, no, they're 5.
They're 5 foot? Which still puts you at a 65-foot drop from the bottom of the track to the bottom of the site. So we got 13 elevation drops, 5 foot each, 65 feet. So inside
You're
of a lot.
25 feet. Your 25-foot elevation, this contour right here is the 25 contour, 2255 contour. This elevation right here is a 2225. So you're 30 feet
30 feet.
from this point to that point.
So inside of each one of those lots is a 15-foot drop, basically.
sorry?
There's a 15-foot drop, whether you're on the top lot or the next lot down approximately.
I think, yeah, that's probably a fair statement.
Okay.
Yeah, again, which is, when you're trying to
One and a
judge
half
that
floors.
feasibility, I would point out that that's not that much different than the adjacent. In fact, it's better than this house that's built over here and a little bit steeper than these. And this was been there for years. So just kind of giving it the smell test, I don't know why this would be so much more difficult than the abutting properties. In fact, I'm here to say it won't be. Physical characteristics, there are no geologic or other hazards present. So I've walked it. The topsoil isn't an issue. But I do want to come back to this, what's been referred to as a spring. That's kind of an erroneous assumption. I don't know how that came about. In fact, I remember when I was here and this came forward in '05, that was just generally referred to as a spring. Well, it's not. It's basically a foundation drain that daylights in a 4-inch PVC. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, let me come back to, I don't have a great picture, but let's use this right here. So there's a foundation drain, especially when you put basements in it. Tom, I know you would be familiar with it. It's basically a pipe that's in a gravel bed that collects any water that would be around a basement or like a daylight basement that's buried into the slope. It collects the water, and then any water that would accumulate, and then it takes it somewhere. Typically in the county, we would put these into a dry well. I don't know when this was built, but I'm sure many, many years ago. That pipe comes from around the house and daylights about in here somewhere. And I specifically want to address it because it's come up in the past. I know the residents are concerned. So I'm here to say, no, ain't no spring. It's a foundation drain. So we have a couple of options, no problem to deal with that. We would either intercept it back on this property and put it into a dry well so it stays subsurface. Right now, it drains out, and within about 50 feet, it goes back subterranean. By the time you get down, there's a path that connects these two, and it doesn't even make it this far down. But there is some lush vegetation, I'll say that, and there is water in it. That 4-inch pipe has probably got an inch of water in the bottom of it. But again, it's collecting it from up here, and it's run. That would either be one of two things, either put into a dry well, intercepted back up on the property, or we can intercept it and bring it down to the dry well and swale that'll have to be constructed with the common driveway. So, again, that's the only surface water in this whole area. It's not a spring, it's a foundation drain. We can easily deal with it and eliminate that issue with any surface discharge to these lots down here. It won't be a problem. Traffic. On one side, we'll have three new homes that access Lily West. Those homes, we use the Institute of Transportation Years Trip Generation Manual. Those three homes will generate 2 trips in the peak hour, which is evenings, 4 to 6, 2 trips. So one every half hour. I'm not seeing that as a traffic issue. I hope that you'll agree. On the other side, again, it's just one house. One house. There's not going to be any increased traffic on Lily West. You've seen the architectural styles that goes with the PUD. Again, we're going to sell the lots. We really won't have any control over it. Yes, there was a variety, but it was thought through. The intent is to say these are the styles of homes that we see being built in the area now with Hillside, and we wanted to capture those and say this is what you can expect. We did not include like Spanish Mediterranean. I wouldn't anticipate that. That was a joke. But, and we've seen the conditions and have no objection to them. They're reasonable. That's my presentation for you.
Quick question. In construction, certainly on that type of land, when you're digging and stuff, you might hit some water or something might come up, and you're going to have to deal with it at that particular point in time, because that's just what happens in construction. And right now, as you presented to us, with dry wells and stuff, if you have to add dry wells, so be it. That's what's probably going to happen. And have you done a geotechnical report on this property yet? Because I know I read something in here that there's some stipulations, the hillside ordinance, that have to be met at some point in time. And Mike or Gordon, whoever wants to address that.
I've done the initial geotech suitability. I haven't obviously done it in writing, but I'll be the one to do that. And yes, I will have to formalize that in the geotech report, but.
Okay.
And that'll be required with the improvement plans, more of a formal, on paper. But typically I'll go out and just do the geotech evaluation. In this case, that's why I said there's really no geologic hazards there. There's no faults, there's no rock outcroppings. But as you know, when you get to digging, you find a variety of issues. We're not anticipating anything that couldn't be handled with standard construction techniques.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, and a geotech report will have to be provided prior to site development work.
Okay, great.
And again, we're not going into this blind. I'm doing the geotech report, so I know what we're headed into, and I'm comfortable. It won't be a problem.
Great. All right, John, go ahead, start. Questions?
Yeah, Mr. Dobler, you were here for the 2005 proposal that was denied. Take me back to that, if you will. Where I'm coming from is, this is an annexation proposal first.
Correct.
And so we kind of tend to we want to see benefits to the city.
Right.
So I'm sitting here going, what are the benefits, to the city here? And explore with me here a minute. So if you take me back to that 2005 development, it extended Lilly, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, reading all of the comments that have come in, you know, it seemed like maybe the biggest item that jumped out was people really not wanting to see Lilly connected, because then instead of 2 trips per hour or day or whatever, you know, you get the UPS truck zooming by and, you know, all kinds of stuff going on. Benefits to the city, you know, if this were denied this time around, help me understand, I don't believe the county to this day has a hillside ordinance like the city does.
No.
Have we not said that, you know, one of the benefits of bringing a property in is that the city's going to kind of handle this with kid gloves?
I think
Is that
that's
a benefit?
Sorry.
I mean, is that a significant benefit in your mind? That you know, it would be developed with the scrutiny that, you know, we have everything from the, I think, color palette, you know, so you don't have some, you know, bright white house against green trees glaring at, you know, and whatnot. So, is that a significant benefit in your mind?
I think it is. I think that's part of the answer is for any city, for any annexation. And, you know, ironically, I work in other jurisdictions and they're, you know, asking the same thing, you know, what's the benefit? Well, one benefit is the city controls how the property develops. You could argue that if we don't annex it, it will never get developed. Well, that's a chance that you could take. But if you're wrong, then it comes in under county regulations that, again, don't have any hillside. They have hillside. It's not an ordinance and it's not a protection. You could clear cut your property in the county and have no problem as long as you treat the stormwater, et cetera. You're fine. Coeur d'Alene is unique, even in Post Falls and Hayden, with their requirements. They're fairly extensive that govern pretty strictly how you can develop in the hillside. One of the things I didn't really talk about, it's in the staff report, but it might pay just to briefly touch on how development in the hillside happens, in that the hillside ordinance itself says once you've determined, and Commissioner Looptrip, this comes back to one of your early questions, is when these lots come in for building permits, the first thing that has to happen is they have to show staff that their proposal for not just building footprint, but for all of the grading and the site disturbance, which includes, you know, the equipment getting down to the foundations and the driveway and all that, meets that 50% presentation criteria or preservation. The answer is if that isn't met, it doesn't go away. No, they simply reduce their footprint. And what I've showed you here and in the staff report is we have huge footprints. So instead of a 5,000 square foot house, you might have to go to a 3,500 square foot. It's still well above any, you know, rational product that you would put on a hillside. So the thing isn't going to disappear if they struggle to meet that preservation 50%, they simply rescale it and redesign it. Let's come back to the preservation requirements in the hillside. So the site plan is brought in. The first thing is to check the calculations, make sure that you're not exceeding that 50% disturbed area. And then there are some requirements for tree preservation. Certain areas, like your building footprint, you can eliminate trees without having to replace them. There are other areas that if you remove trees, they have to be replaced. So typically, staff will require, and I'm going to take a little bit of liberty as what staff will or won't do because I have some familiarity with that hillside ordinance. Staff will require a tree survey. In fact, one's being required for us when we put the utilities in to show what trees are going to be removed. So they'll show the tree survey, and the ones that are to stay are to be, the hillside ordinance requires them not only to be marked, but they're to be fenced by construction fencing. So that process applies to our subdivision as well as the building lots. When they come out to build a house, there's fencing that is put along that disturb the limits of the area that can be disturbed, and that has to be done in the field before they start work. So you don't have an operator that wanders off and accidentally takes a tree out, or any number of things that could happen. With our subdivision, we'll stake the easements. Not only will we stake them, we will string the construction fence along the easements that prevents any overlap or any unintended land disturbing activity outside of the approved area. So I belabored that a little bit, but I think it's important to know that this is not helter-skelter. It's very deliberate and very constrained.
Well, just to finish that thought, I just wanted to say one other thing and ask you one other thing, and that when I said the biggest objection from the comments that I've read were, any notion of connecting Lily and whatnot, and that smacks of the 2005 type of proposal. And if this were denied again, and your client were to develop in the county, it would probably look more non-PUD and more conventional, i.e., maybe you couldn't get 4 lots on, new lots on there because of the water and sewer, but maybe you'd have 3 or something with a Lily extension, more than like, something like that?
Yeah, or even without the street, the city would be driving some of that. East side would probably drive it too on whether they want it connected, because they would be the ones calling the shots if it developed in the county. So I'm sure if East side required it, you'd still have the same neighborhood uproar, but that would be one that could possibly happen. Even if they split it in half, there's no control over or even reining in the amount of land disturbing activity that could happen in that new development. Like I said, under the counties, as long as you can mitigate your stormwater, and that's only on impervious areas. If you graded the whole site, no problem. You don't have a stormwater issue because it's not impervious. So under the county, you could, and I'm not going to get all extreme and, scary, but I will say that is possible in the county completely. And a lot of that is what happens with hillside developments in the county. I've done a ton of individual single-family developments in the county, so I know firsthand.
So a lot of comments besides the Lily surround folks saying they would love to see that tranquil site stay as is. But I don't suppose that's being really realistic, shy of collecting money and turning it into a park or something like
Well,
that.
and Commissioner Ingalls, we all see this. It's not too surprising when you have an area like this that's been established as undeveloped. There's a significant walking path through it. I think the owner has, over the years, just been okay with that as people traverse that area. So, yeah, I would expect the comments to say, no, we like it just like it is. You guys have seen that too. I mean, unfortunately, we're here to evaluate the impacts. There you go. And I want to say one other thing, and it's funny, I was just at City of Post Falls, almost having this discussion verbatim, and that is benefits to the city. I would encourage you not to minimize the I don't want to say responsibility, but the foresight of Planning Commission Council to provide housing for the people that live here. This is becoming more and more of a huge issue where the people that live in the city can't afford to buy it. I'm not saying this is affordable housing, not hardly. It's hillside, but it's more housing that's available, and that is a benefit to the citizens of Coeur d'Alene.
Thank you for the answer.
Go ahead, Lou.
I was just a question. Just for the record, Mr. Dubler, there are 19 suggested provisions for each one of these, and you're confident and willing to comply with all those provisions?
Oh, yes. Yeah, and again, that's not helter-skelter. We confer with staff. They've let us know what's coming down the pike, the individual utilities. So not only aren't any of these a surprise, they're expected. Confident we can provide this and design and build this subdivision well within the parameters set forth in those 19 requirements.
Thank you.
More questions this time? Peter?
When was the hillside ordinance approved by the council?
A while ago. I want to say '07.
I think it's 2006.
So
Six?
sometime after this was denied.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I can tell you from personal experience that we didn't have the hillside ordinance when the
I
last one came
appreciate
through.
that, but I looked to
Yeah,
staff.
I get it.
Secondly, so that we have certain provisions on the 3 lots. And will there be something on the deed so the property purchaser understands what the requirements are? So the person doesn't come back to ask for a change in the PUD?
Can I answer that?
No, I'd like legal to answer it.
The conditions for approval are of record and will be binding on any future developer.
So they will be able to see what conditions there are on that piece of property.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
In addition to that, we put a condition on the face of the plat that says the development has to conform to the hillside ordinance in effect at the time. And that's just good practice.
Okay, Gordon, you'll be back later if there's questions to be answered. I have Lauren Hayden, and she does wish to speak. Come on up. Lauren, all we have to do is state your name, and I'll swear you in. Your name
Lauren
and the city
Hayden.
you live in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Go ahead.
Notwithstanding Mr. Dobler's eloquent presentation on this proposal with its revisions, I do have some comments. I've been a resident of the Stanley Hill area for 17 years, and I oppose this proposal on numerous grounds, but will touch on some of those that are in opposition to what Mr. Dobler, who is a qualified engineer, has represented. I am not an engineer. I am a grandmother, and that qualifies me in some areas, but it doesn't qualify me as an engineer. The 3 findings by the City Council in October of 2005 denying the previous application set out in the background information on page 2 are unchanged. Of particular interest to me are their findings 2 and 3 regarding the physical characteristics of the site and the adverse impact on the surrounding neighborhood. There has been no change in the site. There has been very little change in the neighborhood characteristics. And while I love looking at pictures of pretty houses, like anybody else, the majority of the homes in this area would be characterized as mid-century modern or modest. They certainly do not resemble the lovely pictures provided in the present proposal. I take exception to City Engineer Chris Bosley's conclusion that no traffic is generated from annexation alone, as stated on page 20. The fact that this approval of annexation has very real consequences of promoting an increase in traffic, which is already hazardous in this area. In fact, my street should be renamed the East Harrison Avenue Autobahn. When taken in conjunction with finding B7D on page 44, that the R3 zoning designation would allow a maximum of 12 units, although that is not proposed in this current PUD, the resulting traffic increase would be extraordinary. This annexation benefits only the applicant, Eugene and Nancy Haig Living Trust, to the detriment of the entire surrounding neighborhood, including wildlife, which is an integral feature of this area as stated in Cherry Hill Today on page 12. This application should be denied on its face for failure to comply with the 2007 Comprehensive Plan goals and objectives set out on pages 14, 15, 24, and 25. Further, the application should be denied because the physical characteristics of the site are unsuitable for an R3 zoning, and the proposal would adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood character, finding B10, page 17. The proposal does not comply with the Hillside Overlay Code sections set out on page 27 finding B 8C, and 17.08.915A5 on page 7. On the final page of the applicant's narrative, Mr. Dobler makes reference to the 2-inch poly pipe seasonally discharges water to the surface. Although he claims that this is a foundation drain, I have not seen any sort of hydrological report to that effect, and most of the people who live in this area are well aware that there is water everywhere there. By diverting the surface water to stormwater runoff facilities as suggested, the trees and surrounding vegetation will be deprived of water, causing them to dry out and potentially become fuel for a wildfire event. Calling this project a PUD does not make it appropriate or acceptable. No amount of mitigation will correct the overall deficiencies of this project, regardless how it is labeled. Thank you, commissioners, council, and staff for your hard work.
Thank you. Dorothy McNeil. Just state your name and the city you live in, and I'll swear you
I'm
in.
having a hard time
Oh,
here.
just state your name and the city you live in.
Dorothy McNeil,
And
and I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I
Help you
do.
God. Okay.
After reading email comments from the residents of Lily Drive, I can only agree and state that they clearly address the issues. Maintaining the integrity of the entire neighborhood is of utmost importance. That was true 15 years ago. It is true today. Perhaps more so due to the increased traffic, but I will let them speak. One of my main concerns is the lack of notification for this hearing. Immediately after receiving my notice by mail, this was back at the May 11th meeting I'm referring to, I called a neighbor of mine east of me on Gunnison Place. I should state that I live on Gunnison Place, just adjacent to the Hague property. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
She received no notice. She lives next door to the family that is on Hill Drive and Gunnison Place. So all of the traffic going down to Lily to the shared driveway would obviously go by them. She didn't know anything about it. And that includes the owners on, as I stated, on Hill and Gunnison, as well as the property owners on Hill and East Lily. 15 years ago, I attended the meeting and I spoke at that meeting. Prior to that, we all knew about what was going on or what was proposed, and we were able to get together, talk about it, and we came in mass because we care about our community and where we live. So I ask you to take this into consideration should you not have a lot of people zooming in on this or emailing you or anything else. They simply didn't know about it. And you can't say anything about it if you don't know about it. And I stated I lived at 2525 East Gunnison for 50 years or more, and I'm aware of the pluses and the minuses of this area. There are a lot of natural springs in the area. I've had several neighbors report over the years that the springs have come up into their home. In fact, it's the Mitchell home, which was the home prior to the Hague's purchase, had a spring pop up under their furnace way back when. The neighbor to the east of me has had a spring pop up. There is a cistern on the property, but nobody has mentioned that in any of the views of the the topography of the new proposal. Nobody has mentioned that cistern. And there are cattails that grow around it. They're not there now, somebody's chopped them down, but cattails would indicate to me there's a lot of water, or you wouldn't have a cattail. And obviously, they're going to have to take trees down to build houses. What happens to the soil if it's wet? Does that end up on the end of 23rd Avenue? These things are issues that I have with the project. I ask you to deny the zoning change. The problems that were here yesterday are here today. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. I have Armin Gagné. Oh, okay.
My name
And
is
just-
My name is Armin Gagné, and I live on Lily Drive.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you
I
God?
do. I
Go
do.
right ahead.
I agree with these two ladies. I've talked to quite a few of the surrounding neighbors. I have not lived there in 2005. I've only lived there about 10 years, but from talking to some of the older neighbors, they again confirm what these ladies have already said, that there has been a problem with some sort of underground water problem, and the people living on Stowe, which is at the bottom of this the property in question, have suffered from rain, a great deal of rain, and leaking into the basements. One of the gentlemen said that there was a geotech report. I don't know what that includes, but I think that there should be a really good survey of that property and what is below the property, the surface, to see how much water there is. We have, pardon me, I don't mean to question the truthfulness of one person, but all we have is the report of one person. And yet, there are a lot of people who have been living in that neighborhood for a long time who have complained about the water on this property, and that was supposedly the reasons why this property was never developed before this, because of the underground water. I'd like to see a good report done of that property, the underground property, and I'd like to see that the results be made public to all of the neighbors, as well as yourself. It's your responsibility to make sure that when there's such a proposal as this, that no one person or one group of persons bullies their way and gets their way, regardless of what a lot of other people may say. And I hope that you will bear this in mind when you make your final decision. I just like to ask again that you consider having some sort of underground survey made, or geotech report, if that's the correct word, and that this be made public. I hope that, I think if you lived in that neighborhood, I think each and every one of you would probably have some reservations regarding justifying this project. I thank you for listening to me, and I hope that you make a good decision. Good night.
Thank you. Janice Hogenton? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No problem. I'm Janice Houghton. I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go right ahead.
I live on East Lily Drive. My husband and I have lived there for a little over 30 years, 31 years. The reason we bought that house in that vicinity was that it is a dead-end road, and it's a very quiet, rural-like area, and we like that. We feel very safe there. We feel safe because the traffic is not extreme. And I'm not too worried about the increased traffic. I'm a little worried. But I'm really happy to hear the road's not getting punched through. In 2005, that was our biggest concern. That would completely change the quality of life that we have there and the safety value of safety. Anyways, there's a couple things that I'm concerned about. I sit more on the fence with this. I'm afraid, I hope I don't make any enemies with my neighbors. I understand Mr. Haig bought this property, and I understand that we all have the right to do with our property what we'd like to do as long as it's not harming others. And I understand that this is a monetary issue for him, that he wants to make some money off of his land. I see that, but I also see the impact it's making on a lot of us. To deny him that right is not really proper, I don't think, but I think also it would be nice for him to try and develop this in such a way that it's interfering with our quality of life as little as possible. And so I hate to see that the development is all kind of down at the southern end of the property where it does get steeper, and the congestion of that is going to affect those that live around that area. It's too bad that we can't spread it out a little bit more. I'm also concerned about the access for 3 homes from East Lily as opposed to only 1 from the other side on the west. And I do understand that road, that ingress-egress is further south on the property, but wouldn't it be nice if he could access more of these homes from that side? It would definitely impact our street a lot less. The reason being is that our intersection, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, where East Lily comes into Hill Drive, is a very obliquely angled intersection, and it's a very dangerous intersection. You have to be very careful when you pull up to the stop sign there that you're able to see up the hill and around the sharp corner below you, because people go flying on that hill. And it really kind of worries me that that's a dangerous intersection. So I'd like you guys to consider that when making this decision. But also the biggest concern I have is the water, like these other neighbors. Having lived there all these years, there is a cistern there that hasn't been mentioned. That does kind of concern me. I'm surprised that you're saying it's just a drain, a foundation drain, because to me it looks like a spring. I don't have any proof of that, but we had a dog many years ago that fell in the spring. He got out one night and he ended up in this cistern all night long, yelping, and it ended up that somebody, when I couldn't hear him, but one of the neighbors called. The sheriff had to come get him out. He would have drowned if they hadn't gotten him there. When I went up to find it the next day, I realized it was over my head in depth. As from what I could tell, there was a dead deer in it, and our dog happened to climb up on the dead deer and was able to survive the night. But there is a lot of water there, is what I'm getting at. And it worried me that a child could fall in. It's called an attractive nuisance, I think. So when I approached Mr. Haig about it, I can't remember if I called him or emailed him or something, but I let him know that this had happened and that he might want to close that over because some child could fall in that. And I was basically told, I think, to kind of mind my own business and stay off the property or something like that. It didn't go anywhere. But there is, to me, looks more like a spring there. I think there definitely needs to be a hydrologic study done, an in-depth hydrologic study, because I think there is a lot more groundwater there than is being reported, or whether they know that or not, I don't know, but it seems more than just a drain to me. So safety issues for the street, it would be wonderful if you could spread out the density a little bit, maybe make the southern end of it the common area. Those are concerns that I had. Maybe that would make everybody happy and still allow people to travel through there. Would the city ever consider having that donated to them for a tax break or something? I don't know, just something that if it is denied or we have to rehash this again, that I'd love Mr. Haig to consider. That's all I have to say.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yes.
Judy Hughes?
So I'm Judy Hughes,
City you live in?
and I live in Coeur d'Alene.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Go right ahead.
I'm very much with my neighbor there, Janice. I live on the East Lily, so that driveway is going to be right there beside me. I understand we need to build houses. I'm wondering why they're going to put 3 properties draining out onto East Lily, going the opposite direction from town, and run us into a really dangerous intersection. Why wouldn't they go out West Lily heading towards town? If you looked at that map, those houses are going to poop out onto our county road and then hit that really dangerous intersection. It's dangerous because, you guys, it's steep hills. If you remember that topo map he showed you, we're not talking slopes. we're talking really steep hills. So in the winter, it's crazy, that intersection there. I can't think of making an unsafe situation any more unsafe. So I'm just curious. I was very pleased to hear from the engineer. It sounds like he feels they can build those houses, but why are they punting people in the opposite direction of town onto the county road? If you're going to access to the city, shouldn't you access through a city road? Why are you going to make them drive all the way around and up the hills up to Harrison, or else down and through where it's all congested to get all those people back around to town where they want to go? So that's just my curiosity there, why they have to come through East Lily into a dangerous intersection. The other way is flat and easy and right out onto 15th Street, and people are away they go. So that was just my thing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. I have no one else signed up on the sign-up sheet that wishes to speak. Gordon, you want to come back up and address perhaps some of the questions or comments made?
Do we have anybody on Zoom?
Excuse me?
Do we have anybody on Zoom? I thought there was one person that requested on Zoom.
Can you see that?
Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Chaz, can you check?
You have no hands raised.
Okay, we're good. All right,
Thanks.
Gordon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
So we've heard a couple of concerns, legitimate, and let me just touch on them. I think the traffic is pretty self-explanatory about the traffic to be generated is minimal. Just by comparison, in the time that this taken place to, the time that's transpired in this hearing, we would have seen one car generated. So that's when it should, but let me address this kind lady's question about why they got directed to the east. Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's because the grades on the property, in order to provide access from any kind of upper lot, it would have been a substantial amount of land disturbing needed to provide, to get a driveway down to the Lily West because of the grade difference. And it would have exceeded, anything I could have done would have exceeded the 8% grade from fire access, as well as, again, more significant grading because of the steepness. That's the reason. Traffic, water, again, nobody's saying that we don't expect to see groundwater. It's entirely possible, but I want to come back and point two things out to address that. And one is, we have standard construction techniques that are proven to address groundwater when and if it's found when you build homes up there, and foundation drains is one of them, and it's very effective against collecting water for basements or, houses that are built in cuts to dispose of that groundwater, intercept and dispose of it. So there's not going to be any impact of groundwater if we find it on the site to the surrounding neighborhood. It'll be dealt with on site, and it'll be an issue specific to the property, not to the neighborhood. The second point is as I said earlier, you can look at the surrounding development. Some of the people here live in homes that have 15-foot cuts in that same hill that we're developing on, and they've been stable. If there's groundwater, it's been dealt with. So when you talk about the physical characteristics, I want to say it's obvious that it can be built on. It has been built on for 30 years without any major problems. We can deal with groundwater, slope stability. Clearly, that's not an issue because look right to either side of the neighborhood, and we've got 10, 15-foot fills, we've got 10, 15-foot cuts in the existing neighborhoods. So, that's kind of my smell test to say you kind of don't have to be an engineer to see, no, this is doable. Again, back to groundwater, we're not saying there isn't going to be any. What we're saying is if we do run into it, we can manage it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. At this time, I'm going to close public testimony on the hearing and bring it to the commissioners for discussion.
Before we do that, I have a question, I think of staff, and maybe Gordon, but there is a geotech engineering report that is required,
That is correct.
and what is the purpose of that report?
The purpose is to show the buildability, if it's buildable. Can they actually put housing, foundation, and that type of stuff on it? They do a subsoil subsoils is part of it too.
And
And
is that report public information?
It'll be attached to the site development permit, a public records request, it's available to the public. That
So
is
the
correct.
the individual question about the geotech report will have an opportunity to see that.
That is
It'll
correct.
take some energy to inquire of the city, but if he wants to, you can help him.
Yes, I can.
Very good. And then secondly, on the notices that we gave, when we had them, the last time we met on this was through Zoom, and there were a couple people in Zoom that said that they would like to have been here, and I think we heard some information about lack of persons concerned about notice. Then we did a renotice of this meeting, did we not?
Yes, we republished in the Coeur d'Alene Press, and we also notified property owners within 300 feet of the subject site.
Very good, thank you.
More discussion? Motion?
I have a comment.
Comment?
I'd be glad
Sure.
to start with a couple of comments. I think we've had complex cases come before us. I think this is one of those. I think that there's a challenge between neighborhood needs and wants and a property owner's right to develop. I think there's an important consideration in developing additional housing stock. We're clearly talked about, growth and development. We just heard about needing additional water. There is a tremendous interest in moving to the Kootenai County and the Coeur d'Alene region. So additional housing stock is needed. I think in addition, one of the challenges is that when a proposal comes before us and it's coherent, it's defensible, and it's conforming, it's very difficult to basically not approve such a thing. And I think that's what we have here. I think that the developers made a very strong case that they were willing to address as many of the concerns and needs of the community as they could. There are 19 considerations that they have to comply with in order to get an approval. And I would say that at this stage, I'm in support of this project.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Commissioner.
I think Commissioner Rumpler summed up a lot of my thinking on this as well. I would add too that one of the lens through which I evaluate these, in addition to the findings, is what could be done now. So what in the existing zoning, what could be done? Worst case scenario, likely scenario, best case scenario. And is there a way for us and the city to manage that by controlling to some degree how development happens and how we protect our natural environment, our built environment? And to me, this is an opportunity. We don't know what would happen, but under the current zoning, it could be a lot worse. And so I see it also as an opportunity for us to take some leadership in how we want our area to be developed with the most responsible way possible. So that's just an addition to what Commissioner Rumpler was suggesting.
Thank you. Go ahead, John.
I have some comments, similar comments, I guess. I don't see, traffic being a huge driver here, with 3 houses on one end and one on the other, and there'll be some. Certainly, this is kind of the devil we know, the devil we see, the devil we can acknowledge and versus the unknown. It's not going to be, the pristine, tranquil property forever. It's going to develop somehow. I think if it doesn't develop in the city, it develops in the county, and I think it could very much turn out quite undesirable in that case. I think since 2007, the city's adopted a comp plan and a hillside ordinance that is very, very demanding in terms of reports and geotech studies and all kinds of stuff. It has very exhaustive architectural controls and right down to the color palettes and all kinds of things. And I think you would have 4 houses that are well seated into the hill, very tastefully done, as opposed to develop in the county. It's a big question mark. You know, maybe there's only 3 houses if it goes that way, because it would probably be tougher to meet the water and sewage needs. But, I think the property owner is likely to do something with that property. And I trust the city, frankly, to not that I don't trust the county. I know the city has very demanding standards with regards to hillsides. And when the 2007 comp plan came in and the hillside ordinance in 2006, it put a lot of teeth into that. So as I was sort of alluding with Mr. Dobler's, I think, this is a recommendation on the annexation part of this tonight. It will go to city council as well. I think that needs to be clear. I think, the notion of the city's leadership in taking this and developing it correct for the neighborhood is a good thing for y'all.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Peter.
In reviewing this, I think there's something has changed. I agree with the findings from last time, and that is that hillside overlay ordinance. And that, I believe, addresses the issues that caused us to be denied previously. I suspect, just understanding how the city and the community works, that this precipitated that hillside ordinance, these type of concern here. So I'm going to support this because of the hillside ordinance. And that was something that was put in place after this was denied previously. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn?
It's all been said. Shall I take a motion?
Okay, right ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah. This matter having come before the Planning Commission on June 8th, 2021, and there being present a person requesting approval of item A2-21, request for zoning prior to annexation from County AG Suburban to City R-3. The applicants are Eugene and Nancy Haag Living Trust. Location is 2248 East Stanley Hill Road. Findings, items B1 through B7 are public notice and establishing the actual siting. B8, that this proposal is in conformance with the comp plan policies as follows. I'm going to pull out the most important to me is objective 1.06, that urban forests are being protected, that we will follow the hillside ordinance, which is 1.10, protecting more than 50% of the hillside itself, and that we are also following objective 1.13, the open space, providing green space for the use of these owners and adjacencies. Objective 1.14, efficiency. We have R3 surrounding this on all sides of a higher density, and that this will be a lesser density. And then objective 3.05, neighborhoods. It is compatible to these adjacencies of the R3 neighborhoods. And we are then continuing on through extending Coeur d'Alene City, which is immediately to the west, and just moving that borderline a little bit. We will also be following objective 4.01, city services, in that we will manage water and sewer through the city and establish that. For B9, that public facilities and utilities are available and adequate for the proposed use, that all of our departments have weighed in, and that there is adequate water and sewer will be addressed at the southernmost point of the lot. And that B10, that the physical characteristics of the site do make it suitable for the request at this time, and particularly with the recent, or the historical addition of the dedicated hillside ordinance, which protects that hillside area. B11, that the proposal would not adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood with regard to traffic, neighborhood character, or the existing land uses. Certainly, it's a compatible land use with the adjacencies. the neighborhood character should not be profoundly affected at all, whether or not they follow a mid-century look or not. And then that the traffic will be minimal and it will be directed in two different directions, or three if you count the uppermost existing lot. And then finally, conclusion and decision. The Planning Commission pursuant to the aforementioned finds that the request of Eugene and Nancy Haag Living Trust for zoning prior to annexation as described in the application should be approved with the 19 points suggested provisions for the inclusion in the annexation agreement are as follows. Should I read this or should we just assume? It's a,
You don't need to read them.
thank you, it's a mouthful. But it's basically saying, hey, the city's going to hold them accountable, we're going to follow all the guidelines, or make sure that everything is done to our city standards, which are far exceed the capabilities of the county at this point. So that's it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleming. Need a second?
I'll second.
Coke.
I forgot Commissioner Rumpler is the second. Roll call, Shannon, please.
Speaking to motion, Mr. Chair.
Spoken in motion?
Roll-
Speaking to
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry.
Speak to motion.
In the conversation, we talked about a foundation drain. We talked about going it possibly to a dry well. Is that some condition we want to add to this?
City building ordinance.
I believe when you, foundation drains are around a perimeter of foundation to catch subsurface water.
code.
Dry wells are added when perhaps there's some surface water that might be created during a construction period that they'll have to address, so that surface water stays on the property within a dry well that would be dispersed underground on that property. The foundation drain is more protection of water coming into a house in a basement area.
But I'm where the water goes to. The water comes out from the foundation into the property, and the engineer said you maybe put a dry well in there. Is that something
That's
that?
something that they would do during construction time if a dry well is needed, because there's substantial amount of water that couldn't be dispersed within the property itself without causing some intrusion to other property downhill, because water will run downhill. They will contain that, and that's part of the city requirements with the hillside ordinance, that regardless if when you start digging on the footprint of the property, you've got to contain the water. And however you do that is based on what you have to do.
So that's already
retain it.
provided for in the
That
city
is
code. Very good,
city
thank you.
code, city building codes and such.
So you got a second?
Okay. Roll call on the first motion, please.
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Mandel,
Yes.
Rumpler.
Yes.
Okay. That particular motion is approved. Next to the PUD-2-21.
Shall I roll? I'll roll, sealing my
You're on it.
voice lasts. I've got allergies. Okay, this matter having come before the Planning Commission on June 8th, 2021, and there being present a person requesting approval of item PUD-2-21, a request for planned unit development known as Haag Estates PUD. The applicant is Eugene and Nancy Haag Living Trust, location 2248 East Stanley Hill Road. Findings, the initial justification for the decision, criteria, standards, and facts, we adopt items B1 through B7, boilerplate. B8, pursuant to section 17.07.230, planned unit development review criteria. A planned unit development may be approved only if the proposal conforms to the following criteria to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission. The proposal is in conformance with the comp plan. This is based upon the following policies, and we're covering them right from vistas to hillside protection again, efficiency of existing roads and infrastructures, and that we are doing managed growth and infilling into the neighborhood. B8B, the design and planning of the site is compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. As stated before, they've addressed the hillside ordinance, they've addressed the street accesses and traffic, as well as services. B8C, the proposal is compatible with natural features of the site and adjoining properties. In the case of property located within the hillside overlay zone, does not create soil erosion, sedimentation of lower slopes, slide damage, or flooding problems, prevents surface water degradation, or severe cutting or scarring, reduces the risk of catastrophic wildfire in the wildland-urban interface, and complements the visual character and nature of the city. This is based on the hillside ordinance and adherence to it. The 50% dedication to that open space, the dedicated park adjacency, and management of water through local and our city codes and building guidelines. B8D, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that development will be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. That's based from all the input by our various city departments. B8E, the proposal does provide adequate private common open space area as determined by the commission, no less than 10% of the gross land area, free of buildings, streets, driveways, or parking areas. Common open space shall be accessible to all users of the development and usable for open space and recreational purposes. And certainly the hillside ordinance has made that even more palatial. B8F, off-street parking, does follow the PUD part of this code. There are some exceptions, and that we will adhere to the PUD code. B8G, that the proposal does provide for an acceptable method for the perpetual maintenance of all common property, which will be part of the PUD agreement. In conclusion, the Planning Commission pursuant to the aforementioned finds that the request of Eugene and Nancy Haag Living Trust for approval of the planned unit development as described in the application should be approved. Special conditions applied are as follows, and they're points 1 through 19, which the engineer has stated they have no opposition to.
Thank you for your motion. I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Mandel. Roll call, Shannon, please.
Fleming.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Lutrip.
Yes.
Mandel.
Yes.
Rumpler.
Yes.
Okay. Motion is approved. Moving on to S-2-21.
One more. Okay. This matter having come before the Planning Commission on June 8th, 2021, and there being present a person requesting approval of item S-2-21, request for a preliminary plat, the Haag Estates. Applicant Eugene and Nancy Haag Living Trust, location 2248 East Stanley Hill Road. Our findings are, the Planning Commission adopts items B1 through B6, notification, et cetera. B7, pursuant to section 16.10.030A.1, preliminary plats. In order to approve a preliminary plat, the Planning Commission must make the following findings: that all the general preliminary plat requirements have been met as determined by the city engineer or his designee. This is based on input throughout this presentation. B7B, that the provisions for sidewalks, streets, alleys, rights-of-ways, easements, street lighting, fire protection, planting, drainage, pedestrians and bicycle facilities and utilities are adequate. We'll see as we go through this, but it appears that the PUD will meet all of those standards. B7C, that the proposed preliminary plat does comply with all the subdivision design standards contained in Chapter 16.15 and all the subdivision improvement standards contained in 16.40 requirements. This is based on the presentation by the engineer on behalf of the client. B7D, the lots proposed in the preliminary plat do meet the requirements of the applicable zoning district. This is based on our research through all of this. I'm running out of steam here. Yes, the lots meet the lot size. Yes, they meet. No, they do not have the street frontage. That is why the PUD is in place here. That addresses the issues with street frontages that are non-conforming in the city standards. That is why the PUD was established. And in conclusion and decision, the Planning Commission pursuant to the aforementioned finds that the request of Eugene and Nancy Haag Living Trust for preliminary plat of approval as described in the application should be approved.
With the conditions,
And, oh, yes, and our special conditions, 1 through, let me guess, 19. Oh, yes, 19, no surprises. Will be part and parcel of that.
thank you for the motion. A motion by Commissioner Fleming, second. Second by Commissioner Ingles, roll call.
I was pointing
Shannon?
your way, I thought, for consistency.
We did it down here.
That's right, all right.
All right.
We'll share the stage.
It's like an auction, I gotta be careful.
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Mandel,
Yes.
Rumpler.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved. Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, wait, Peter needs to make a comment.
Speaking to the motion,
Speaking to the motion, okay.
Mr. Ingles chaired when you were absent.
Yes, I
Did a
saw
good job,
that.
but he had commented that he was saddened that he wasn't able to make motions, being the chair. Well, I want to tell you, John, I will do everything I can within my power to make sure you have ample time to make motions, because you do a very good job at that, although Lynn, she did the lion's share tonight.
Well, I also want to comment on that. I did watch the meeting, even though I wasn't here, and I want to congratulate you, Commissioner, for making your first motion since you've been on the commission, so I look forward to many more from you. Thank you very much.
But I think you heard my answer.
Well, I still look forward to many more motions from you.
Very good, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Yes,
If
go right
I
ahead.
could, thanks to Lynn for really carrying the load, and I did make the comment too that it was nice to see my Commissioner Lutrip make some findings. That was awesome. But the comment I said when I first got here was, when I walked out of here, I said, I learned a whole new respect and appreciation for our chairman. So you do a great job.
Well, thank you. We all do a great job for our time and everything we do here, so thank you for that. I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? We are adjourned.
We're, yeah.